Good morning from Vietnam, Rachel. Thanks a lot for spending your late afternoon and early morning joining our Inside Sharing shows and share your stories with our global audience. And on behalf of the listeners, I want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's just such a pleasure.
Hey, Rachel, have you been to Vietnam before?
I have not. I've been as close as the Philippines or Indonesia, but I haven't been to Vietnam, so it's on my list.
Hey, please, the next time if you and Ruby and any other family members of your family decided to travel to this part of the world, now you have a new friend, new family. We will be so happy to take you guys around. Okay.
Thank you so much.
And Rachel, in our culture, it's a great honor if we can have you to help introducing a little bit about who you are and the works that you do. Can you do that for us?
I'd be happy to. So I am right now a career coach, and I work at a college in Minnesota, which it's a small town in a town with two colleges with a river running through it. And I found myself in this place in Northfield, Minnesota at Carleton College after a wild journey. So you could say that my life up to this point has been sort of like a river with twists and turns. Before I came to Carleton, I was in diplomacy. And when I was in diplomacy, I was really thinking about how to build sustainable communities. So, how can we work together and get all of the forces combined to have accountable governance, to have investments in people, and to have sustainable livelihoods, and think about how we can leverage diplomacy for that. So I worked on democracy building and financial development, economic development around the world. Before that, I worked on asylum and immigration. So I worked again for the government and was humbled to hear the stories of people who were applying for refuge in the United States. So I spent a couple of years doing refugee and immigration policy. And before that, I was in graduate school and I studied international development, immigration policy, public policy, thinking about how we can have tools in place for better governance. And before that, I was in student activities at a university, which means I was planning activities for students to come together and have fun. And what's so interesting about all the twists and turns is everything that I've done has sort of come at an invitation. And I didn't necessarily know what to expect. I didn't know when I was young that I would one day be a diplomat. I didn't know when I was a diplomat that I would be a career coach. But the invitations have come and I've accepted them, and I've never regretted saying yes to the opportunities coming before me.
Wow. Rachel,
Mm.
so it's beautiful. Life is a journey, right? And then, in that journey, we have opportunities to do knock into the door, and it's up to us to decide whether or not we accept the invitations or rejecting it. And you're accepting the invitation that create a different path in the river and a different path in the river, and each of that is so beautiful. So let's examine that together today, all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How wonderful. Hey, Rachel, let's travel time. Let's travel time. Let's be young again today. So when I was young, I always wanted to become an astronaut. So
Mm.
it's fascinating to me to wear the suit and jump in a different planet. But life did not give me that opportunity or any opportunity of doing something closer to it. So when you were young, what was your dream about the future self, though?
So when I was very young, it's funny. I had the instinct that I wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to help people, but part of me thought that wasn't enough. I had some restlessness. And so I took actually a year of typing because I thought at the very least I want to have functional tools that I can be a secretary. So I will be somebody's secretary and I know how to type very fast. And I can remember distinctly those two things. And then when I was 18 and about to graduate, I remember my dad was recording a video on a little handheld camcorder, and he said, "Well, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a diplomat." Very flipped,
Wow.
like as if I was just tossing out again, being like an astronaut or something, being out on the moon. Like the chances of that happening were so far fetched. But I had studied French language, and I had part of me that thought that traveling around the world and being part of a global community was really appealing. And so I did. I did put that out there in the universe. And so then it was 10 years later when that happened. But yeah, I had different iterations, right? I wanted to help people, but I knew there was more. I wanted to have functional tools so that I could have security no matter what. And then I did have some big dreams.
Wow. So when your dad recording that conversation with you, right? Then you say you wanted to become a diplomat. What did he say to you that day?
I think there wasn't even a response. I think it was like, oh, okay. And the video recording stopped. It just seemed so unfathomable, I
Hmm.
think, so unimaginable.
Wow. But at that sparkling moment, you told him that you want to become a diplomat, and that was not somewhere inside of you during prior to that having that
Yeah.
diplomat wanting. So at that very beautiful moment of him recording you, right? You can say you can be anything. Why diplomat?
I don't know. I had
Ah,
studied French, and I don't know.
ah,
It is so interesting to think about how that seed got planted.
ah.
No idea. Maybe there was an inner knowing, maybe there was an inner fascination. I don't know.
Wow, beautiful. But see, 10 years later, you become one, and then all of that
Yeah,
because of the seed that you built in that grow inside of your head, right?
yeah.
Ah,
Well, it's so interesting because even the process by which you become one, I mean, I saw a poster at a graduate school to take a test. So you take a test, and I thought, I'm not doing anything that day, and it was a Saturday morning, and so I showed up and I took the test randomly. I didn't prepare. I just showed up, and then I found out a few months later that I had passed, and
ah,
I thought, what in the world? This is phenomenal. And then I was invited to take another exam, and this time I went down to Chicago, and it was a whole day of exams. And you have to present material, and you have to be negotiating and acting as if you are one. And so it's a huge assessment. And yeah, and at the end of the day, I was with, I don't know, 6 or 8 other people, and they called people back at the end of the day of the tests, to let you know how you did. And
ah.
at the end of, so I was the last one, and I thought, oh my goodness, they're saving the worst for last, because when they tell me my results, they don't want me to be embarrassed and cry in front of everyone. So they're waiting until I'm the last one so that I don't embarrass myself. And so then I get called back, and they said, "Well, we've got good news. We'd like to offer you the position, the role of diplomat."
Wow.
And I said, "What? What? Like, what in the world?" And they said, "We would be delighted to have you there." And they said, "What have you done before, to prepare yourself for this?" And I said, "I was in student activities, and I've been doing all sorts of things." And I think, I don't know. Diplomats, you think of people who went to law school, or who were, very involved in a lot of strict formal things, and I hadn't been.
Mm.
Um, and I just had done things that I loved, and that allowed me to find my voice, I think. And so, yeah, when I was leaving, the security guard said to me, he said, "Congratulations, no one has been approved for about 18 months.
Wow.
You're the first one to make it through." And I thought, no way! How is this even possible? And yeah, so it was one of those really remarkable things that truly, I didn't worry about it. And it sounds so privileged to say that, but it's not, because there were people who were by my side who, like one gentleman had taken the test 8 times. This was his 8th time of flying in and taking the exam, and he wanted it so badly. And I mean, and of course I wanted it, I welcomed it, I thought it was a beautiful opportunity. But yeah, I felt very lucky that day, sort of guided by angels, you know?
So we save the best for last, but not save the worst for last, right?
I know, exactly. I know, that was such a relief.
Hey Rachel, we've been talking to a lot of government officers, very high ranking around the world also. Like the people in the army, the people in the, like the government office and stuff like that, but never talk to a diplomat. So you are the first one, and I'm interested to know how's a life as a diplomat. Would you share?
Yeah. So when I was in that world, it was such an honor. I was struck by the people that I was surrounded by. So I was surrounded by people who had prioritized public service, and essentially had given everything to be part of that community. And so the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis, how is it serving the American people and more broadly the global community, to make the world a better place? And so there's sacrifice in that. People up and leave and take their families all over the world with them. There's a disruption in terms of the lives of children and families as you go from place to place. And so there's some difficulty, but at the same time, it's an incredibly welcoming and warm community. So, for instance, when I moved to Mexico City, I had somebody who welcomed me, who bought items that were, in my home to cook with, that showed me around the neighborhood and the community. And you're just welcomed and part of this community that's actually quite small. And you get to know other people from other countries in this small community. And so it's almost like this transnational community where the world becomes very small. And so there's a generosity and a service orientation that is really it's very, very humbling. I always felt like I was surrounded by people who were smarter than me in the room, and I felt so lucky to be part of those conversations and in that community. So yeah, in my diplomatic world, I lived in Mexico City for a couple of years, and I loved it. I loved that, and then I worked on United Nations issues, and so I worked in DC, but then spent a lot of time in New York and Geneva. And in those multilateral settings where I was meeting representatives from all over the world, I loved it. I mean, I can remember being in Geneva and connecting with a gentleman from Senegal. I had spent some time in Senegal when I was in 1995 when I was a student. And so I spoke Wolof, and so I was able to connect with this gentleman, and we laughed and exchanged jokes. It was beautiful. It's a very small world, right? And I think the thing is, I'm not gonna put on formal airs. I always was myself, and I find people fascinating and loved connecting with people however I could, and sharing stories and laughing along the way.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then when you were young, did you ever dream of one day you're gonna travel in different countries, living with different communities and do this kind of, interacting with different kind of people around the world like this?
No, no.
Uh,
No, when I was young, my mom was a nurse, and she hosted a family from Swaziland when I was very young. And so that was my first exposure to a family who was so different from mine. And Swaziland is a little country that's inside South Africa, and it's a kingdom. And so this man and woman and their twin daughters came and visited our home, and they were commenting on, I mean, they were just commenting on our dishware and how things were so different. And that was my first exposure, and maybe that planted the seed. So when I was 5 or 6, but no, I had no idea that I would travel around. And now I've been to, I think at last count, 37 countries, and I've lived in some, and I've spent months in some. And it's funny now as a parent of a young child. I mean, I haven't traveled as much being a parent by any means, but when I was young, I just did it. I mean, it was like riding a bike. And I grew up a single family home. We did not have a lot of money, and I didn't travel, but it just was the way of life, if that makes sense. So I had a little old car that was so rusted out that it was almost going to collapse, but I sold it in order to get a plane ticket. I think to go to Senegal. I played the French horn, and I sold that to travel somewhere. I mean, it was just like I didn't have cars. I would bike around, and I would take the bus, and travel was where I spent my money.
Wow. So that's the freedom, right? The freedom to
Yes.
the exchange of what you have, something that you love to do. And I think that freedom is a very beautiful choice. It's hard to do, hard to live, and it also takes a commitment for that also. So Rachel, again, earlier in this conversation, you say that I say to bring Ruby to this part of the world. So if put it into considerations, all right, and then we will show you how
Huh.
beautiful my country is.
I would love that. I would love to. Vietnam is on my list for sure.
Yeah, tell us from diplomat world, and then on what occasion that you decided to leave the work that you love doing and go to help people in the like the career coach for the people at the university. What happened to that path?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that happened was, as a diplomat, you sort of become a global nomad. You're part of this community that goes all around. Um, and and that's beautiful. However, when I had my daughter, there was something really compelling about, I wanted her to have stability and to grow up in an idyllic community where she would have a lot of security. And so I did some soul searching, and I decided to return closer to home, to where I grew up, and so that she could know her grandmother, and she could know her aunts and uncles, and she could be part of that world. And so I couldn't be a diplomat in the middle of the country. And so I decided I had some conversations with people, and I thought, I want to work with people who are smart, who are committed to changing the world, who are interested in living a meaningful life, and how can I impart and share some of my knowledge and my experience with people who are just starting out in their careers. And so that's what so again, it was similar to the aiming to be a diplomat. I saw a job description on Carleton's website, and I applied, and just poured out my soul. This is something I would love to do. I've worked with lots of interns, and I would love to help teach, and I'd love to help impart what I know and help other people find their paths. And the next day I got a call from the office, and 2 days later I was talking to the director, and then things worked out. And then 6 weeks later I was moving my family to the middle of the country, to Northfield, which the motto of the town is cows, colleges, and contentment. And
College and contentment.
so exactly. So it's in the middle of cornfields, and there are cows, and there's a cereal factory, so the air is full of cereal. And I remember the first day that I arrived, and I was, surrounded by students on the campus. I thought, wow, this is so different, and it was such a big change. But then it's just been delightful
Yeah.
because the people that I work with are so full of hope. I mean, look, it's at the end of the day, I have been in the business of hope, regardless of where I've gone. So it's been in diplomacy, we talk and we hope for a better future, and we strive for that. When I'm working with college students, it's about working with people and building a better path forward.
Well, where
So
were you before you moved to the college now?
yeah.
Where before that?
So I was in DC,
Ah,
Washington, DC.
wow. So Ruby was about 2.5, 3 years old back then, and then
Correct.
moving from Washington D.C. is totally different than moving to the town with cow and containment and what
Yeah.
cow
Cows College Contentment.
yeah, calculation
Yes.
and contentment. So what is he saying? Because she could compare the two differences. By then already, right? What did she say about moving into that small town?
For her, it was an adventure.
Ah,
And so she loved it. She just went with it, and
yeah.
she trusted. Kids trust their parents, and she
Ah,
trusted it was right. But not that long after we moved, maybe a year after, we went back to Washington D.C. because I still had friends there, and we were riding around on a bus close to the neighborhood that we had moved out of, and she said, "Mom, we're supposed to be living here." I said, "Sweetheart, we're not. We're not. We're living where we're supposed to be." But we did just go back about a month ago. So now she's 10. So it's been, 7, 8 years. And we spent so much time discovering and rediscovering Washington. And I think she loves having that as part of her past.
ah,
And I think she would like to go back.
ah,
But yeah. Now she knows.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, she can go back.
Wow. See,
But yeah,
as parent, it's so beautiful that we can give her different words so that she can see, right? Our children can see and compare and decide which one best for them. But the memories, the culture, the thing that build up from them from the inside, is part of that because of our job and of doing so. And I think that when I was young, I really enjoy the private, quiet places. And then life took me to the States, and then it's so busy there. So when I got my daughter and my son back then, I decided to
yeah,
move back to Vietnam and live. And amazing that Ho Chi Minh City is my city, the city I'm working at the moment. I'm staying. It's really, really dynamic. It's pretty much like New York and, and
yeah,
so yeah, and
yeah.
it made me feel that I'm in the country and then and can still feeling that I'm there somewhere in the States when I'm studying. So yeah,
It's so cool. Do
yeah.
your kids remember it?
My daughter is back in the States for high school 3 years ago already. So she visiting us in the summer. After 2.5 years, we couldn't see her, Rachel, because of the COVID situation. It's
Mm,
amazing that which is
mm,
never in our plan, right? And then life took,
mm.
like things happen, and then it's really, really, like challenge for all of us. And then so we took her
Yeah,
back on June already, and she's coming back in about 4 days for her
yeah,
17th birthday. And then we love to see in her as much we
yeah,
could. But I don't think that she loves to live in here. Her heart and everything is in
yeah.
the States. So and I'm happy for
Ah,
where she wants to be, as long as it has to be like she wants to be. Respond to it, accepting it, and embrace it.
yeah, that's right. That's
Mhm.
right. Somebody gave me this image the other day of, uh, you know, imagine life is kind of like they're swirling around us. They're
Mm.
swirling around us, And we imagine some people like to hold a stick or hold on to a stick, like a broomstick, I don't know, or whatever. They like to hold a stick, and you have that sense of security, but it doesn't matter whether you're holding the stick or not. There's still the swirl. So
Yeah.
like life is this journey. It's this swirl. It's this, and we ultimately, we can't really control the swirl. We can't control that.
Yeah. Rachel, it's beautiful to see, life coming in circle for you because you originally you wanted to become a psychologist, right? But then you
Mm.
didn't do any work, professionally as a psychologist. But your works
Mm.
relay a lot with people, with building hope. We listen to them, try to get the insight of them unveiled, right? And then try to match from their talent to the needs of the world and try to help them to build hope for themselves, build hope for the if they can have that seed of hope, they can get into the world and be the best version of what they could be, and then you build the world better place that way also. So
Yeah.
that is something that we need to celebrate and congratulate you for being able to fulfill your dream as a young girl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It is such a privilege.
I know,
Hmm.
I know. And Rachel, earlier of this conversation, I say that I really admire the people that helping other people. Giving help physically is already something that we barely see now. To see in the world is a really lost connection. Like today, a lot of people next door we didn't even know the name, how they and now you're helping people to find their purpose. It's even going to the next level, really really high level of helping, because the purpose is something that drive us every day to do something that we really really want to do, right? So why did you do that, Rachel?
I think I don't know. One of the gifts maybe that I've been given is the ability to hold space for people
Hmm.
and ask questions about where they find happiness, where they feel most alive, what do they envision for themselves, and I hold that the insights, the notions, the thoughts that come to mind as sacred, and I think coming to this place where I'm able to have those conversations with people is really, um, it's my
Hmm.
purpose, right? It's I feel most alive when I'm able to connect in a deep way with other people, and if I'm able to help them to gain some insights about what they want and who they are, um, I hope that they're able to take that in and use it to inform their future decisions. So
Hmm.
yeah, at the end of the day, like the work of diplomacy, it's almost like you're steering an oil tanker,
Hmm.
right? Like you're part of this oil tanker. The oil tanker is going, you can maybe make tweaks of an inch or two in the direction and the steering of the oil tanker. Sometimes you have breakthroughs that make a big difference, but most of the time it's this oil changer that moves very slowly. But think about if you're able to influence a life and a person right in front of you and able to help them come to their purpose.
Hmm.
I mean, that is powerful. I
It
mean,
is,
think
yeah.
it like all like if we were to return to the river analogy, if everyone was able to, like flow and find their purpose and live true to that, how powerful that river would be. Like if we were all drops and we were all doing the things that we were meant to do, that we were put on this earth to do, it'd be so powerful. And to feel a
Hmm.
sense of purpose and belonging and part of a community.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I find it deeply satisfying.
I
And
know.
in fact, after 8 years of doing this work, of working with students, that's the thing that I'm drawn to. Like at the end of the day, I will drop everything if I can have a conversation with someone who is searching for meaning.
Mm. And that is very very meaningful path that you take over the past 8 years, right? And help me to understand if somebody come to me and ask and share their desire to find the purpose and find the works that really mean for them, and then how can I help them using your knowledge and using your works so that we can share,
Mm.
so our audience who listen to this conversation can duplicate the works that you do to whoever that come to them and ask for help though.
Mhm. So it's a process of discernment. It's looking inward and
Mm.
thinking about what are your values, what's important to you, uh, what are your needs. So there could be financial needs, there could be skills that you're really good at, there could be things that the world needs you to do, there could be commitments to others. So it's this inward reflection of
Mm.
really taking stock of who you are, what you value, what's important to you. Once you do that reflection piece, that really sitting and knowing, and sometimes if you can ask yourself questions of when am I happiest? What am I doing when I'm happiest?
Mm.
What do other people really appreciate about me? What do I bring to a conversation? What do I bring to a room that nobody else can? Or what if there was no me? What would the world be missing? You
Ah.
know, what if I wasn't there? What what would be missing? And so I think that process of reflection, that's where it all begins. And then it's a process of having conversations with people and starting to build up your knowledge in terms of what are opportunities that are out there.
Mm.
So some of that is being through conversations with people who are doing different roles, playing different roles. Sometimes it's doing research on companies and organizations and finding out what problems they're trying to solve
Mm.
and thinking about, do you have some of the skills or talents or insights or curiosity
Mm.
that could be used to solve the problems?
Mm.
How do you fit with that? And then it's connecting the dots. And I think, one of the things that I'm also struck by is we're put on this world to learn,
Mm.
and we're put into different situations to help us, again, to learn and to refine and to find, what is our mission. And I think when we start to feel like we're not learning anymore, that's
Mm.
a time for disruption, and it's an opportunity to change something up and to move on. And I think a lot of times people will get stuck out of fear, or they'll get stuck out of comfort, and
Mm.
and I think our ability to continue to learn and to ask ourselves, what am I doing, and is this am I serving the world today, and if so, how? I think if we can continue to ask ourselves that question, that's good.
Beautiful.
But does that sound like a formula? Like
Yeah.
looking inward, reflecting, writing down. I'll tell you another powerful thing to do is listening to your dreams.
Listening to
So when
the
you wake up,
dream. Wow.
listening to your
Tell
dreams.
me that.
So it's interesting to think about the power of our mind. And I've been doing some work this past year on
Mm.
imagery and and thinking about the stories that our mind is telling in our sleeping hours.
Mm.
And if we can wake up and capture the dreams that we've dreamt and record those, there's sometimes some really interesting insights and messages that our mind, there's an inner knowing
Mm.
that if we focus on, there might be some insights that we get about our
Mm.
lived experience.
Beautiful. That's a book by Elizabeth Gilbert called The Big Magic. Do you read that book?
I haven't yet.
Yeah, it's
Is that
something
what
like,
it's about?
yeah, it's what it's about. Let me get the book. It is the book. Okay, Big Magic.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So get that one, and because they say that the ideas will come to us. Like can come to us at any moment in time, and then it's up to us to catch it right down, responding to it, because a lot of us don't listen to our dream, like you just shared. A lot of us get the dream came to our life, but then let it pass, and then that dream will come to somebody else, because it's because you don't we don't ready to welcome it. It's a very beautiful book written by Elizabeth Gilbert. I think that you find it and read it, and then maybe have Ruby to read it also. It's beautiful. All right.
I love it. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Hey,
That's great.
Rachel, um, now you have been student, and student is the age of 18 and plus, right? So it's 18 and
Mhm.
over. I admire your mom when she invited people from the kingdom in South Africa to your home, and that is where, when you were about 5 or 6 years old, you say earlier in this
Mhm.
conversation. And what your mom did was to build a set of values, for you to welcome the people from different country, to show them the kindness, to show them, the humanity of love. And those are the values that your mom, tried to promote, your parents tried to promote within the family. So from what you are doing at the moment, is there a way that we can incorporate it into our family, so we can help, our, children at early as it possible, for them to start to live in their values, finding what they love doing, and starting to match between the two, to so that they can experience their purpose earlier.
Mm, that's such a good question. You know, I think, I mean, the thing is with Ruby, I have raised her like a little adult from the moment she was born. And by that, I mean, I have given her such freedom and agency that I think she starts to know already who she is. I mean, she's got a pure heart, but she also is so confident and brave in this world. And yeah, and she acts like she's acted like she's been an adult from forever. But even when she was really little, we lived in Washington D.C. and I parked at the Kennedy Center. Have you ever been to the Kennedy Center?
No.
It's a center for performing arts in Washington D.C. And every night at 6 o'clock, there's a free concert, and I parked there. That's where we parked in. So every night I would walk her, and she's a little toddler just learning how to walk, and we would stop and we would watch the Millennial Stage, which had a different concert every night, whether it was performing artists from all over the world. And that exposure to art and music and theater and dance, I mean, we did that every night as often as we could while we were in DC. I think that exposure is really powerful. And just so the more that we can help our children, I think, to learn and to see different ways of being, and I think, yeah, so sharing the world with them, and helping them to trust uh, that they'll be okay, um, and we've got their back, but helping them to explore and trust is another powerful thing. And yeah, I mean, yeah. So I think it's just, it's letting them explore, and also how we are in our world. I mean, I the other day she was saying, she sometimes is remarks upon kind of the things that I've done, and I think we cannot hide our own stories of our life from our children. Um, like we can share, and not in a way to say I've done all the things, but just to say this world is a magical place, and so say yes to as many things as you can, and we'll see what we discover, and
Beautiful.
help your kids to be captivated by the life ahead of them, and who they are, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Teach them to say yes to things, to say yes to opportunity, to be better human beings, right? So that And then along the way, the confidence we build up, because we will share the a new article. Yeah, I'm writing a new article this Thursday and sharing about building
Mm,
confidence. It comes from a
yeah.
concrete, the foundation within the works that we've been doing, the world that we've been living. So it's part of a lot of elements that we can help our children to build that, to build that confidence level up so that it can be concrete inside of them along the way also. So Rachel, you mentioned, I have two last questions for you for this conversation. All right.
Mm,
And during this conversation you mentioned the word I think a lot. All right.
mm,
And thinking is something that fascinating for me and my wife. Okay, we've been seeking for the secret sauce that have that people are doing are thinking. All right. And then if we can have that secret to share with people who listen to this conversation, and they can start to reflect, to think, and find if something is interesting that they can practice, and hope that it can help them to expand their ability to think, because our thinking capability these days, in our opinions, is diminishing. So we need
mm.
to sharpen that area. So how have you been helping you to expand your ability to think over the years, Rachel?
Mm. I think it's over the years, it's a matter of continuing to learn. I mean, I
Mm,
would describe myself as a lifelong learner. And so uh, it's taking on new skills in new areas. And
mm,
I love learning new things.
mm,
So this year, when I got my coaching certificate from GW University, it was something that I was drawn to, but it's a whole new skill set
mm.
in terms of listening and coaching and thinking about neuroplasticity,
Yeah.
the effect of how our thoughts can change our mind, and and there was a whole lot of new learning involved in that. So sometimes it's more of like the intellectual, collegiate learning, but also things like dancing. Or I just joined an athletic club, and so I'm going a couple of days a week, and it's coached and everything like that. And I think keeping my body and my mind uh, in good form
Mm,
is really helpful too. And so it's like learning doesn't always just have to be this intellectual activity,
mm,
but it can also be um, physical activity, and watching your health and having the discipline uh, to to take care of yourself. So it's a whole regiment, right?
mm.
And I agree with you in terms of the necessity of um, people. I want people to be thoughtful
Mm.
and to honor themselves and their families by learning and being more disciplined about what they're consuming, whether it's social media or
Yeah.
or what type of reading they're doing, and what ideas they're being exposed to. Um, yeah, there's a lot of material that just seems to be super base, and that's just not where I want to spend my energy or time.
Mm. Beautiful. So learning, continue to learn, continue to expand the areas of learning, and find activities that can help you to ease the mind, to ease the to ease the to feel, as I put right here, to be in good form for the body and the mind, right? So that you can
Yeah.
continue to expand your ability to think. And I think, my wife and I, we are working on our book, writing about thinking, after collecting answers from so many people, so many experts, so many, consultant advisors that have been others to improve their lives, right? And we break in the thinking word into eight acronyms, and then the T is for time, so it's like we have to schedule time to do it. And then the thing that you mentioned in here is the learning and the keeping the body and the mind to be in good form. the learning is in the knowledge. So the key within the word thinking is to constantly expand the knowledge, because that is the information that we get in, so that we be having something to circulate and then make it better. And and the G, like the body and the mind in good form is the another N, the last N between the G, after that, before the G. So that is the nourishment. So we have to do something
Mm.
that nourishing our mind, our body, so that we can always in the good shape, for us to be able to sustain and create something well in our ability to think. So thanks for sharing that, Rachel. It's help us to strengthen our database of writing.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
I know. Hey, last question is about the future a little bit, because we've been travel back in time. Now let's travel into the future. Now we knew that you grow up in the family was mom is a nurse and really trying to grow and add in, and show you the values of life. You grow up wanted to be a psychologist, but then also wanted to be a typewriter, so that you can have a security in life. And when your father filmed you of what you want out of the instant, you told him you want to be a diplomat. 10 years later, became one. Years later, decided to leave, Washington D.C., leave the diplomat world for something that more security for your daughter is also beautiful. So move the family to the cow, call it in contentment world.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And working on the works that build hope for people. And that is very, very, very admirable. And is there anything in the future that you are working on now you want to share with us, and that together we can celebrate with you in advance, Rachel?
Mm. I don't know. I'm in this beautiful, mysterious place right now where I'm trying to figure out how to shape a life in this next decade. And I know the elements that are important to me. It's important to me to be part of a community. I want to be part of a wellness space, and I want to continue to be a coach. And I think that this is a question that I hope to answer. I mean, there's a little part of me that thinks, oh, I would love to write a book. There's another part of me that would love to devote my life even more time to coaching. And there's another part of me that would love to be uh, doing workshops or speaking or something like that that helps people on a broader scale to
Mm,
find their purpose. But I don't know what that looks like.
mm.
And so I think I am sort of coming to the universe and saying, okay, what's next? And I've got open arms, and the thing is, I'm in no hurry, but at the same time, as I've found in life, oftentimes once you open your arms to the universe and say, tell me what's next, it usually doesn't take that long. And so we'll see what happens, but I really appreciate the spirit of celebration, because I think, we'll see. Coming out of the pandemic, and I think coming into this place, I just feel like a lot of people are returning to their core values, and I can tell that's what I'm doing too. And
Sure.
I really, really feel this deep sense of purpose again.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I think as long as I'm true and authentic, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And as long as, when I think about my path forward, the things that I think about are, my daughter, she's my number one. My mom, who I'm very close with, she's here too. And as long as they're good, I'm gonna be just fine.
Uh,
Yeah, my North Stars.
yep. Yep. And that is one of the beauty coming out from the pandemic, regardless of all of the damages it's created that it had been, right? we came back tune in to really tune in and live in our purpose, come back to find what is really meaningful and important to our lives. And I hope that lesson will stick long, and will be with us long enough, so that because it's really meaningful living that way, instead of having the cosmetic, having like wear different hats when you have to you come to work, go out of work and stuff. So be real, be authentic, and enjoy life like you are doing at the moment. Celebrate small success, celebrate big ones, and then celebrate out of nowhere. Enjoy the flow of the river, right? And let the
Yes.
river takes us, and then along the way, open and accept opportunity, open and say yes to opportunity, and that's supposed to be how life is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm grateful for every moment,
Yep.
every day that I get to show up. You know?
Rachel, it's a wonderful conversation. Thanks a lot for being so kind, so generous to spending your late evening and your early evening to join and share your stories with our audience. Please say hello to your family. Say hello to Ruby and your mom first.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you in person one day.
Wonderful. I hope to take advantage of that offer. And likewise, if you ever want to explore the city of colleges and contentment, we would be happy to host, of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely,
So thank
absolutely,
you.
absolutely. I'll bring my daughter to your to your city sometimes. Maybe next year or the year after, because I really enjoy taking her to like the countryside. Otherwise, I don't really enjoy living in the city side. So absolutely, Minnesota is somewhere I really want to
That's,
go.
oh, that's great.
Hey,
Well, thank you so much.
thank you, my friends, for joining, and have a wonderful evening. Relax, recharge, and enjoy the evening. All right.
Yeah, you too.
Bye bye,
And enjoy your
Rachel.
day.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.